I feel like it's a deja vu from 20 years ago.
Tonight, hundreds of people gather in the nation's capital for this year's Red Dress Day.
We need to highlight all the love and the light that they brought into our lives.
The family of Rebecca Contois held a family fun day to commemorate Red Dress Day in Winnipeg.
Because it brings awareness of the missing and murdered Indigenous people.
And Mi'kmaq youth lead a red dress walk in Sebaganegity. Good evening, I'm Christian Ashkate. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us. May 5th is a day for communities across the country to honor and remember the lives of missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And nationally, the day has become known as Red Dress Day. APTN's Annette Francis tells us about two events held in the nation's capital this afternoon.
We thank the Creator for everything that grows on the land.
Following a few prayers, youth from the Kitigan-Zibi School Drum opened the event on Parliament Hill. About 50 people came dressed in red, some carrying signs and some with pictures of their loved ones. The first one happened 20 years ago, and families are still here telling the nation the issue isn't going away. Bridget Tolley is the organizer of the event.
I feel like it's a deja vu from 20 years ago.
Tolley has been a strong advocate for families of missing or murdered Indigenous women and girls even before Red Dress Day got started. 23 years ago, her mother Gladys was killed by a Quebec provincial police cruiser while crossing the highway near her home on Kitigan-Zibi First Nation. That's what drives Bridget Tolley to keep organizing. For 20 years, she's been supported by Amnesty International.
I met Amnesty in 2004, a month after the Stolen Sisters report came out. In November of 2004. And 20 years later, they're still here beside me.
That Stolen Sisters report was one of the first to document the pattern of violence experienced by Indigenous women and girls in Canada. Ketty Nevi-Bandy is the Secretary General at Amnesty International. She says not enough has changed since then.
We need a very clear implementation plan that has the resources and the budget needed, working with families to build that plan and build those resources and execute them. That's what needs to be done. We need to walk through the execution and ensuring that what families are demanding actually happens. I think it's enough with the commitments, it's enough with the recognition. As you heard today, they need concrete action.
A few blocks away at City Hall, about 300 people gathered for a separate Red Dress Day event hosted by the Ottawa Aboriginal Coalition. Mary Doust is the executive director of the Minwashin Lodge, an Indigenous women's support centre. She says progress on combating MMIWG continues to be slow.
The losses and the direct impact it's had on many of us only continues at a rapid rate that is it's inhumane to have to constantly face tragedy over and over again.
In spite of the lack of action from the many reports and national inquiry, many who took part in today's events say they'll continue to bring awareness and seek action. Annette Francis, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Also on Parliament Hill, an Indigenous-led project to collect data on missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls was among a number of Red Dress Day events in Ottawa. The data project is a collaboration between Poktutit Inuit Women of Canada, La Femme Michif Otepamiswak, the Ontario Native Women's Association, and Two Spirits in Motion Society. The groups hope that collecting vital statistics on MMIWG will pressure the federal government to fully implement all 231 calls to justice identified in the final report of the National Inquiry into MMIWG. Ontario Native Women's Association CEO Cora McGuire-Surrett says this data will lead to positive policy change.
Indigenous women are not safe when they're accessing services and systems. When you're looking at the healthcare system, the justice system, the policing system, sometimes people like to think that it's one bad person who did one bad thing, when it's not. When you look at it, it was a systemic failure. And so everybody has a responsibility to correct that systemic issue. And so the data story is going to really showcase where there is policies that are actually implemented that are discriminating and perpetuating the violence that Indigenous women continue to face.
Now to the East Coast, where youth led Sabaganegati's Red Dress Walk to learn and promote awareness about MMIWG and 2S. APTN's Angel Moore reports.
In the Sabaganegati First Nation, over 100 students from Sabaganegati School, Ilnu, Seabook, Gina, Mogogum School, LSK, led the MMIWG2S walk. First-time participant, Talia LeBlanc, is 10 years old, and she walked with her mother, Carissa Augustine.
Because it brings awareness of the missing and murdered Indigenous people.
And did you enjoy? About 200 people walked through the community, coordinated with the LSK School and the Sabaganegati chapter of the Nova Scotia Women's Association. Brooke Willis is the president, and she says awareness starts with the youth.
Yeah, aware of their surroundings and just to be more precautious when going out, because our people do go missing at a higher alarming rate. So I felt it was very important that we did have them participate today.
The day was about honoring MMIWG2S and teaching future generations. According to Statistics Canada, between 2009 and 2021, the homicide rate is 6 times higher for Indigenous women and girls. Sherry Julian Brooks is a primary school teacher and helped arrange the event.
We wanted the kids to take part in this, to show that, you know, we worry about our family members that are missing, and it was a learning experience for all the kids.
The walk concluded at the community's cultural trail, where MMIWG and 2S people were remembered in ceremony.
This affects our communities at a greater impact than mainstream society. So to get the kids aware at a younger age just really helped, I hope, make an impact in their life.
This was the first Red Dress Walk for the students, and they are planning to walk every year. Angel Moore, APTN National News, Sabaganegati, Mi'kmaq Nation, Nova Scotia.
The people of Winnipeg also took to the streets for Red Dress Day. Here's Tiara Whitley with those details.
Leading with the Strong Women's Song, families took to the streets of downtown Winnipeg. Joining them were over 300 people from the community. Grand Chief Kyra Wilson of the Assembly Manitoba Chiefs also marching in support.
You know, obviously we're dealing with a crisis right now, and so today is a reminder of how important this recognition and awareness is.
Also recognizing the fight of families to get 2 separate landfills searched in the city.
So of course, you know, with Prairie Green Landfill, we were successful in that search, and now we're moving towards a search at Rady Landfill, and we've had a lot of support from different levels of government.
Marchers gathered at the Forks to hear stories from families impacted by the ongoing MMIWG crisis.
As we honor the lives of our missing and murdered Indigenous women.
Rachel Lyons is the aunt of Cherise Houle, who was murdered in 2009. To date, no one has been charged in her death.
Somebody knows something about Cherise. A young girl just doesn't get missing off the street and then dumped in a creek outside of Winnipeg. You know, she looked like a little kid, like an 11-year-old, 10-year-old kid. She was 17 years old. She was just shy of her 18th birthday.
Many here also choosing to speak of birthdays and celebrations they missed with their loved ones because they were taken away too soon. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Also in Winnipeg, the family of Rebecca Contois held a family fun day over the weekend in her honor and to commemorate Red Dress Day. Contois is one of 4 women murdered in 2022 by a serial killer. Once again, here's T.R. Wheatley with that story.
Check it out. An afternoon of dancing, kids' activities, and food. A celebration of life for all missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, and Two-Spirit people.
We need to highlight all the love and the light that they brought into our lives, and sometimes that gets it takes a back seat because we're overshadowed by how they left the earth.
That's Isabel Daniels. She helped organize this event with the family of Rebecca Contois. Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Myron, and Ashley Shingus were all brutally murdered by a serial killer in 2022. Daniel said with the trial going on, a lot of the focus was on the killer. Now that he's serving life in prison for first-degree murder ×4, events like this can put the focus back on the women.
She loved the color purple, she was very bubbly, she had a beautiful smile, and she was very kind and affectionate to her family and to the people that knew her.
Barb Gamon is an MMIWG advocate, often on the front lines helping search for women in this city. She's grateful for a change in pace that brings community together.
I think it's important. It uplifts the families, and it's a fun day for the kids. And the music was awesome, and the dancers. It's a good get-together for the families.
Community elder Geraldine Shingus also paying tribute to Rebecca's spirit. It was Rebecca who was found first, sparking an investigation that led to the discovery of all 4 women.
It was Rebecca Contois that started, everything. We got to thank her family, and we got to thank Rebecca for, beginning and initiating that search.
Shingus also provided support to the families twice. First to push to search the landfill, a nearly 2-year battle to get a physical search of the Prairie Green landfill for Morgan and Mercedes, and then in court as they went through the trial.
Seeing Rebecca Contois' family and Mercedes Myron's family and Morgan Harris's family, even Buffalo Woman, and we later found out she was Ashley Shingus, and just supporting that family too now, so we need to have that search for Ashley and for Tanya Nipanak.
In March, the Winnipeg police said another search of a separate landfill would happen for Ashley Shingus. That same landfill, where the remains of Tanya Nipanak, believed to be a victim of another serial killer, are also believed to be.
Yeah, it'll be 14 years in September. 14 years since she's been missing.
Tanya's partner Vernon Mann saying back then the police only physically searched for Tanya for 3 days, something that's been hard on him and their 2 children.
My daughter's 23 and my son is 28, and it's a day-by-day thing. It takes a lot to try and deal with these things, especially when it's coming back. It's like it's all fresh again, because especially with the other case being so similar to Tanya's case, it's a lot to take in. It's almost like it never goes away because it's a constant reminder on social media and in the public about everything that's going on.
With talks about possibly expanding the Shingus search to include Tanya, Mann remains hopeful that he can soon bring her home for a proper burial. Holding on to spaces like this event in the meantime where community helps him feel safe. T.R. Wheatley, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Thank you, TR. We will continue our Red Dress Day coverage when we return. Stay with us. Welcome back. In recognition of Red Dress Day, the Manitoba government announced new funds that families impacted by missing and murdered loved ones can access for help. Distinct First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and urban Indigenous populations across Manitoba are represented by the organizations receiving the funds. They include the Manitoba Kiwetanawi Oke Miganak, Southern Chiefs Organization, Gaganaway, Infinity Women's Secretariat, and Tuna Sugit. More than $350,000 is being provided to the 5 organizations who will give direct low-barrier support to eligible MMIWG2S plus families. Immediate family members may be able to access financial support from them to help cover costs to search for loved ones, court proceedings, counseling, or other eligible supports. The money is revenue from the $15 million MMIWG2S Plus Healing and Empowerment Endowment Fund, initially invested by the provincial government last year and managed by the Winnipeg Foundation. Manitoba Families Minister Nahani Fontaine says the fund has now grown to $22 million.
At some point, Cora Morgan and I have the goal of having that endowment fund reach $50 million. Should it reach $50 million, what we're looking at potentially in returns of upwards of $2 million every year. As I've shared before, the way that the endowment fund is constructed is that 60% of any and all returns every year will flow directly for the use of MMIWG2S family members, with 40% coming back into government to be able to support Indigenous-led organizations and the activities that they do in respect of MMIWG2S.
The color red flooded the streets of Yellowknife as more than 150 people took to the streets to show their support for National Red Dress Day. People gathered for the opening ceremony at the Northwest Territories Legislative Assembly at 12:30 local time. Participants marched through downtown Yellowknife to Northern United Place, a nonprofit organization where lunch was served. This year's event was marked by a speech from Melissa Hardesty, who is remembering the 10th anniversary when her daughter Itanda Hardesty Beaverhoo was sexually assaulted and left for dead in Fort Liard. She was only 12 years old at the time.
She brought great joy to our family, and it's really hard talking about it. She was taken from us because, we have boys that want our girls. They want them, and, they'll do anything to have them. So her victim was that person, was that man that wanted her so badly. Today is a special day. And today, when we walk, let's remember who we're protecting and what we're walking for.
Today, communities across Canada are mourning missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people. The City of Saskatoon local groups have launched a program they're calling Training Active Bystanders, or the TAB program. TAB teaches participants how to spot a crisis, react, and respond effectively. This includes recognizing warning signs of racism and violence, preventing harm, and connecting victims to resources to escape danger. Co-chair Darlene Okamesim Seacott says TAB helps people who want to help but don't know where to start.
I think part of it is learning to be, I'm not going to say hyper aware where you're anxious all the time, but always listen to that voice, that red flag, because that's not your imagination. That's something uncomfortable has happened or dangerous or unsafe, that to act on it. Find some resource people. Find a group like ours.
We have more news after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back. Time now for our photo of the day. Today is Red Dress Day, and APTN's Angel Moore shared this picture of the MMIWG2S walk in Sebeganegati First Nation in what is now called Nova Scotia. Thanks for sharing, Angel. If you want to see your photo featured on APTN National News, email your submissions to share@aptn.ca. Now let's take a look at tomorrow's weather forecasts. Starting on east, sunny in St. John's at 10, Charlottetown partly cloudy and 17. Cartwright 16, Happy Valley Goose Bay, sun and 18. Rain in Quebec City at 19, Saint-Jovite 20 in rain. Ottawa 21 in rain, Sault Ste. Marie 15 in showers. Sioux Lookout 16, Wawa 19. Puckatawagan 8, Thompson 7. Winnipeg 18, Gimli 14. 16 in Estevan, Regina 17. Stony Rapids 12, Buffalo Narrows 17. 24 in Peace River, Fort McMurray 22. 20 in Medicine Hat, Lethbridge 18. Sunny in Penticton at 22, Vancouver, rain and 20. 18 in Fort Nelson, Smithers 11. Old Crow 0, Mayo 11. 19 in Trout Lake, Yellowknife 10. -3 in Colville Lake, Fort McPherson -3 as well. -7 in Whale Cove, Chesterfield -7. And Iqaluit -5, Clyde River -10. Last week, several First Nation leaders in Manitoba called for the return of cultural and sacred items in possession of the Hudson's Bay Company. The company, in effect, brought Canada under British rule in 1670, but has since fallen into bankruptcy and started selling all of their stores across the country. Now, records of their 355-year legacy will be kept safe from the sell-off because the Manitoba Provincial Archives will control them. APTN Sav Jonza has more.
So it's like 1670 meets 1970. See how they did that?
It was the 335th anniversary of the Hudson's Bay Company on May 2nd. In recognition, the Archives of Manitoba showed off their sprawling collection of donated records from Canada's oldest corporation, a corporation that has since gone into financial peril.
We've been getting lots of questions ourselves, people concerned about the records here going up for auction. And so on that side, we really wanted to reassure people and communicate that these things are here and they're not going anywhere.
The Hudson's Bay Company, or HBC, filed for creditor protection in March and will close all of its stores across the country. While they liquidate and auction off their assets, keeper of the HBC Archives, Kathleen Epp, says this collection will remain safe under the possession of the Manitoba government.
The collection is incredibly valuable.
The HBC donated a hefty amount of materials to the Manitoba government in 1994 and more since. 2,200 linear meters of records, including 12,000 maps and 170,000 photographs. Epp says once the records were donated, the HBC gave up control of them and the stories they tell of their controversial role in colonization. Manitoba Archives visitor Kobe Konopalenko couldn't be more excited to dive into the history.
It's crazy to think about how it's from the 1600s till now, and everything's still here and still good to use. That's pretty cool. I find it pretty interesting, and I mean, I wish I could touch the books and read them, but I can't.
This vault is the smallest of their collections, with only a mere 4,000 items inside. There aren't any ceremonial items or artifacts among their massive holdings, but there are many other special things, like the original copy of the Peguis-Selkirk Treaty from 1817.
This is between Lord Selkirk and the 5 Indigenous leaders of the region, and they sign with their totems, those 5 animals there, and then their 2 names are provided around the totem. So we've got here Chief Peguis, and then also Letter of Noir with his Indigenous name above the fish. And so this is the first document in Western Canada that establishes and acknowledges Indigenous land rights and is only superseded by Treaty 1.
The collection can be viewed by anyone for years to come, weekdays at the Archives of Manitoba in Winnipeg. Sav Jonza, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
And that's your evening newscast for this Monday, May 5th. We're back again tomorrow for your daytime show. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, miigwech masicho, hi hi. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next time.